Hello, hello. This is Heath and Holly, and you're listening to a chronological Bible study in 1 year. This is overview, episode 7, covering days 38 through 44. So, Holly, are you ready for another exciting trip on the Bible caravan?
Yes, I am. Woohoo!
All right. So let's see if I can be in the right place here.
Our pie is getting bigger.
Yeah, I'm going to turn off the webcam so they can see that.
Yes.
Okay, so they should. Wow, look at that. That was pretty wild.
Yeah, and it's a nice piece of pie.
Yeah, I don't like how it just did that. Anyway,
I saw that from afar.
yeah. So yes, we are making progress. So that blue piece keeps getting bigger, so hang in there. And now we're going to show you what's coming up. So you got 94 minutes and 50 seconds of readings this coming up week. Oh, I should also point out that Holly and I are recording this ahead of time. We're not doing it live because we're out of town.
Visiting Mickey Mouse.
I'm not visiting Mickey Mouse, but she is. Yep. So back to what's coming up. It's all Exodus. So we're starting with the message on Mount Sinai with the 10 Commandments, and it's all in Mount Sinai. So it covers about a year, though. And what's coming up? The 10 Commandments are in the beginning of Exodus 20, but after that, we have additional commandments for multiple chapters. And the first covenant between Israel and Yahweh, their God, through Moses, is made in Exodus 24. Moses goes back to God's presence, and there's lots of instructions on building the tabernacle, priestly garments, other parts within the temple, not the temple, the tabernacle, and more regulations, and then the badness starts. There's the golden calf and the destruction of the original 10 tablets, the recreation of the new ones, and then they make the holy items that God had instructed them to make. And that's pretty much what is coming up. This is the first time we see God being given the title of Adonai, which is Lord. That is a very influential verse, because there are human beings on this earth and have been doing it for a long time where they've substituted God's name for Adonai or Lord. And that is the only title that they generally use. We also see another title, Yehovah Kadesh, which can mean Yahweh sanctifies. And Holly, there's quotes. We're going to look at quotes because we always look at how this relates to Jesus. And so Exodus 21:17 is quoted in both Matthew 15 and Mark 7. You can read one of them, Hall.
Sure. Matthew 15:4, for God commanded, saying, honor your father and your mother, and he who curses father or mother, let him be put to death.
Exodus 21:24 is also quoted by Jesus in Matthew 5:38.
You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth.
The 10 Commandments are quoted by Jesus. We have honor your father and mother. That is quoted by him multiple times. The thou shalt not kill, again. Do not commit adultery, again. Do not steal, again. All of these are quoted multiple times. And do not bear false witness. So we see there are 5 of them that he's quoting multiple times. And now we're going to give you a few questions that you can think about while you're reading these passages. And Holly will read the first question.
Sure. Exodus 20:9 through 10. Jews of Jesus' day argued over what was work and therefore forbidden on the Sabbath. This led to Jesus being chastised for picking grain, Matthew 12:2, Mark 2:24, Luke 6:2, and healing on the Sabbath, and for a healed man to carry his bed in John 5:10.
In Exodus 21:24, this, which we had already quoted, this is similar to the Code of Hammurabi, which was estimated to be around 1750 BC, and that likely predates Moses. And it says, if a man put out the eye of another man, his eye shall be put out. If he break another man's bone, his bone shall be broken. If he put out the eye of a freedman, or break the bone of a freedman, he shall pay 1 gold mina. If he put out the eye of a man's slave, or break the bone of a man's slave, he shall pay 1/2 of its value. If a man knock out the teeth of his equal, his teeth shall be knocked out. If he knock out the teeth of a freedman, he shall pay 1/3 of a gold mina. So my rhetorical question is, well, what do you think about comparing this extra biblical text to a biblical text? Is there any value in it? What is it? How would you use it? Holly's going to do the next question.
Yes, I am. Exodus 21:30. This is the first use of ransom in the Torah, where a payment is made in exchange for one's life. This is later used in Exodus 30:12 in association with a census. Ransoms are paid with money. Why did Jesus pay a ransom with his own life? See Matthew 20:28, Mark 10:45.
And from Exodus 21:32, the value of a slave was 30 shekels of silver. This was the price for Judas to betray Jesus in Matthew 26:15. Do you think that's a coincidence?
That's a good one. Exodus 24:3-8. What are the terms of this covenant? Is it just the 10 Commandments, Hebrew dabar, word, or all of the laws, words, and judgments, which Moses transmitted from Yahweh to the children of Israel? Assuming it is all of Yahweh's laws and not just the 10 Commandments, this larger work would be the contents of the Book of the Covenant and the terms of this agreement between Israel and their God. But do you think this includes just the message from Mount Sinai, the laws going back to the first Passover, or all of the history going back to Genesis 1?
Yes. The question is, what is exactly the terms of this covenant? Exodus 24:7. This is now the third reference to a book which became part of the final version of our Bible's Pentateuch, which is the first 5 books. And do you think Moses had multiple books before writing a final version?
Exodus 24:8. How does the blood of the covenant compare to the blood of the new covenant? Matthew 26:28, Mark 14:24, Luke 22:20, and Hebrews 9, verses 18-28.
Exodus 24:16. The glory of Yahweh was within the cloud on Mount Sinai, and soon thereafter filled the tabernacle. Compare this to the glory of the Lord shining around the angels, announcing Jesus' birth in Luke 2:9.
Exodus 25:30. Jesus calls the showbread, bread of the presence, literally bread of the face. The bread of the presentation, Matthew 12:4, Mark 2:26, and in Luke 6:4, because it is a perpetual presentation of bread. Would this be related to our daily bread in Jesus' model prayer for his disciples? See Matthew 6:11, Luke 11:3.
Yep. Give us this day our daily bread. Exodus 26:1. The tabernacle was the area where sacrifices and incense were presented to Yahweh by the priests. John 1:14 says the Word became flesh and tabernacled among us. Why would this word be used?
Exodus 26:30-33. The veil of the tabernacle separates the holy from the most holy areas. It is an analogous, I'm saying that wrong, analogous to the veil of the temple, which split from top to bottom when Jesus died. Matthew 27:51, Mark 15:38, Luke 23:45. What does it symbolize? See Hebrews 9:19 through 22.
Exodus 29:14. This is the first of many sin offerings described by the Torah. Sin offerings are described for unintentional sins, purification or consecration rituals, and at appointed times. They are not for intentional sins. How does this compare to the redemptive sacrifice of Jesus?
Exodus 29:37 and Exodus 30:29. Whatever touches the altar is holy, because the altar is holy. Compare this to the distorted view of Jesus' adversaries. Matthew 23:16 to 21.
In Exodus 30:1 through 8, this altar of incense carried on into the first temple. So see 1 Chronicles 28:18 for that. Was this the same altar in the second temple where Zechariah was visited by an angel while burning incense? And you look at Luke 1:9 through 11 for that.
Exodus 30:18 through 20. Priests were to wash their hands and feet before entering the tabernacle, but later a bronze sea was used for the priests to bathe before entering the first temple. 2 Chronicles 4:2-6. Is it related to baptism?
Exodus 30:23. Myrrh was a component of the anointing oil. How was myrrh a part of Jesus' life and death? So see Matthew 2:11 for the birth, Mark 15:23, and John 19:39 for his death.
Exodus 30:13. Could this be the precursor to the tax Jesus and Peter paid? Matthew 17:24 to 27.
Exodus 31:13, cross-referencing Ezekiel 20:12. How is the Sabbath a sign between the Israelites and Yahweh?
Exodus 32:32 to 33. Is this book which Yahweh wrote, is it the same as the book of life? Psalm 69:28, Revelations 3:5.
Exodus 33:20. No man can see the face of Yahweh and live. How does Jesus say we can see God? Look at Matthew 5:8 for the answer to that.
Ooh, I know that answer. Exodus 34:5-6. Yahweh descends in a cloud and declares himself, while he declares in a cloud his son. Matthew 17:5, Mark 9:7, Luke 9:3.
That'd be the transfiguration.
Oh, that's a big word. Yes, it is.
Exodus 34:28. Moses fasted 40 days and nights. And this is the second 40-day period of time with Yahweh. So see Exodus 24:18 for the first. Just as Jesus does, he fasted 40 days and 40 nights in the wilderness as well. See Matthew 4:2 and Luke 4:2. What a coincidence!
Exodus 34:28. The 10 Commandments are on the tablets and are called the words of the covenant. Also Deuteronomy 4:13. This is later explained as the laws spoken by Yahweh to the entire assembly, Deuteronomy 9:9-10. What is the relationship between the 10 Commandments and the rest of the judgments or laws in the Torah?
Exodus 34:30. The shining of Moses' face seems very similar to Jesus' transfiguration. So look at that description in Matthew 17:2, Mark 9:3, and Luke 9:29.
Exodus 35:30-31, and Exodus 28, verse 3. Bezalel, the master craftsman, was filled with the spirit of Elohim and granted wisdom. understanding, knowledge, and technical skill. How does this compare to the New Testament gifts of the Spirit?
Exodus 38:25 through 26. This passage can be used to calculate how many shekels are in a talent. So it's 3,000. Assuming that 4 drachma equals 1 shekel, and we have a reference there, then 1 talent equals 12,000 drachmas. So if you look at Jesus' parable in Matthew 18:23 through 35, the wicked servant in that parable was merciless for a loan that was 1 in 1.2 millionth the value of what he was granted mercy for. Ooh, math comes alive.
On the caravan. Exodus 39:1 and Exodus 28:5. Compare the colors of the priestly garments with Jesus' cloak during the Passion. See Matthew 27:28, Mark 15:17, John 19:2. The tabernacle veil has the same colors as the priestly garments. Exodus 26:36. Why might that be?
Why might it be, Holly? Now we're going to talk about Holly's favorite questions. So I'm going to read them and she's going to answer them. So Exodus 12:8 and 13:3. The Passover meal was lamb, unleavened bread, and bitter herbs. A Seder, which is a ceremony, is much more elaborate in celebrating the Passover. Why might that be? And then finally, Exodus 12:14, the Passover was meant to be kept for all generations. What does that mean today? So while she does that, I'm going to turn the webcam back on.
Ooh. Okay, so I'm going to start with reading the verses that Heath so nicely referenced in the questions. So Exodus 12:8 through 11. Then they shall eat the flesh on that night, roasted in fire, with unleavened bread and with bitter herbs. They shall eat it. Do not eat it raw, nor boiled at all with water, or roasted in fire. Its head with its legs and its entrails. You shall let none of it remain until the morning, and what remains of it until morning you shall burn with fire. And thus you shall eat it with a belt on your waist, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand. So you shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. Exodus 13:3. And Moses said to the people, remember this day in which you went out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. For by strength of hand the Lord brought you out of this place. No leavened bread shall be eaten. So I don't think Heath has anything shown up there from what I shared with him, but what I looked at,
I turned the webcam on.
Is you don't have my little picture of what a Seder is. So at any rate, a Seder is different than, as Heath referenced in his question, than what the Lord prescribed for the Passover celebration. And if you look into the 6 symbolic foods that are included in a traditional Seder, you'll see some interesting things that are different. So you'll see like hard-boiled egg. You'll see some kind of a very sweet, mushy paste, which is made out of apples and pears and walnuts. So you'll see different things. That's just a couple of the differences. And, I thought about it, why is that different? And I think it's because, in teaching the story and as traditions are made, the people, wanted to add more to the plate that had to do with the story and telling the story of God's people and the Passover meal. That's what I think. In terms of should it be kept for multiple, generations?
I have the Seder thing on.
Oh, good. Thank you, Heath.
And then I turned it off
plate.
again.
Yeah, the Seder plate. So
I don't
that's
know
something
if that
you
actually worked.
That's something that you can Google to see, because it would be a little boring for me to read every name to you on the Seder plate. But if you just Google the Seder plate, you will see what today would be at a traditional Seder. And you can compare it to what's very basic in the Bible verses. Should you keep it for generations to generations? What does that mean today? Well, I always like to keep things simple and just look at what God says. So in Exodus 12:14, he says, "So this day shall be to you a memorial, and you shall keep it as a feast to the Lord throughout your generations. You shall keep it as a feast by an everlasting ordinance." So if you could see my little sheet, I have it highlighted in bold. You shall keep it as a feast by an everlasting ordinance. So to me, that means yes. It means that you should be keeping the Passover in your home today. Or at least that's what it means to me. Oops.
I don't care. Just
anyway,
throw whatever around that you want.
That was me in the background. My iPad.
The webcam's on. They saw it.
My iPad falling off. Yeah, falling off the table. That's a pretty good webcam if you saw that.
No, they didn't see it. They saw your reaction.
Yeah, my reaction to my iPad flying on the ground. But at any rate, before I digress, Heath and I personally, with our family, do keep the Passover. And I think it's very meaningful. We keep it, we try to keep to it as much as we can within where we live. So if we were on a farm, we could keep it even better, but we're not allowed to go out and roast the lamb the way that it's prescribed in our neighborhood. But we try to do it to the best of our abilities to keep the Passover. And we've done it since the children were little. And we do put our coat on. And we do have our, our walking stick or whatever, and our shoes on, and we eat it like we're going to make haste. It's very meaningful. Heath will read the Bible verses, and our kids look forward to it every year. And I think that it's deeply meaningful and deeply spiritual, and it's something we feel like we're supposed to be doing. Therefore, we do it.
Yeah, I would say that we're not just looking at Exodus, though. We're remembering the Passover meal that Jesus shared with his disciples, and so that's a lot of what we're actually recounting.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's bringing the Old Testament and the New Testament together.
I'm going to turn this camera off again. Oh, yeah.
We're so professional around here.
I don't know. I'm not sure that we are, but we try. Okay. Now I think we're back. Okay, let's make this study together. Pass on important cross-references we didn't provide or questions that we didn't think of. And feedback on making the chronological sequence better. This one's actually pretty straightforward. It's just bits in the middle of Exodus. And there he is, Moses, with his 10 Commandments, saying,
OG.
See you next week. So thanks again, and see you on the caravan.
Next time.
Peace out.